Hi folks, Mark Merrill with Firm, Fairness in Reporting Media. Going on further with Title IX violations by the Maine Principals Association. And the Maine Principals have an argument, or at least they think they do. We're going to read some information from the Office for Civil Rights under the United States Department of Health and Human Services, who is now being guided by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. The notice to the Maine Principals Association is a determination of Title IX violations dated February 25th of this year. Of course, as always, folks, for the last several weeks, going on months now, you see before you State Representative Laurel Libby and an image or a picture of the post, the actual post that she put on Facebook, but it was already there, just needed to have more exposure because it's a violation of the Title IX sex discrimination regulation from 1972. It's a long time ago, folks. I was around. I remember when girls basketball and other girls sports like soccer and other things, field hockey, were finally allowed as varsity sports. This is a big deal in the state of Maine. It didn't occur until 1975. Still, biological women, not biological men, pretending or being given permission or special rights to compete against girls, which is not fair, number one. And number two, it's against the law, like it or not. Now, before we go on to the details that came down to the Maine Principals Association from Mr. Trump's Office for Civil Rights under DHHS at the federal level, we have another excerpt from Laurel Libby, who spoke on the Howie Carr show, Boston. Of course, most people are familiar with that in the New England region, back a few days ago. Here's just another portion of that interview.
Now, it's, there were stories, we mentioned them yesterday. I don't know if you can comment on why these judges recused themselves, but we've now all read the stories. You can read them in the Maine Wire if you'd like. But now the case has been kicked down, and it's being heard by a Biden appointee who was very narrowly confirmed last year. She is a lesbian, and is it possible? I mean, are you concerned about that you're not going to get a fair hearing from this judge and this Democrat activist, radical lesbian judge?
You know, after all the outreach that I've received from folks across the country, Democrats in California stick out in my mind. I'm not ruling anybody out. I'm not concerned about where this hearing is going to be held as far as who the judge is. I'm honestly not concerned about that at all, because I've heard from such a broad swath of folks across the country that support this stance, that biological males do not belong in female sports. And so the bigger picture here is that we're going to have our day in court, myself and my constituents, and we will do whatever it takes to get my voice back, my vote back, so that I can represent them in the State House once again.
I would think that at least in some districts, as you get further away from Portland, that there's been some pushback towards some of the Democrats who voted to basically strip you of your voting rights and censure you. Has there been any indication that that's happened? Could you move for a reconsideration of this vote? I mean, it was a pretty narrow vote, 75-70.
It was a narrow vote, and when you consider that the Democrat majority in the House was retained with just a 60 vote difference across the entire state, you would think that some of those Democrats in those very close districts, one won by only 7 votes, would consider that taking the stance that biological males belong in girls' sports, which is can be extrapolated from that vote to censure me. You'd think that they'd want to reconsider. I don't see any signs that they're softening, Howie, I'll be honest. I think they're pretty dug in on their position. But if there's, any signs that there are, we would definitely move on that. What I would say is that it's clear across the state that Maine people agree with this stance and support me and don't support this censure.
Is there any more people stepping forward and saying that you should run for governor next year? Are you moving towards some kind of statewide race, probably governor?
I've been hearing that question a lot, Howie, and I'm not ruling anything out, but my priority right now has to be, of course, getting my constituents' voice and vote back, and also ensuring that Maine girls have a fair and level playing field. We are in quite a state up here in Maine, and it's unfortunate that we're getting the reputation that we are, because it really is a wonderful state. But there are some big decisions to make for next year, Howie, and I am considering all options at this point.
So that was just an earlier part of the interview that she did with Howie Carr a few days ago, folks. As we continue on with the Title IX debate, or tussle, or arm wrestling match. Whose law is going to rule? It's pretty common sense if you think about it, folks. Title IX's been a federal law since 1972, 1975 in Maine. Now all of a sudden, LGBTQ comes along and says, oh, well, you know what? This young man wasn't good enough for the boys' team. So he's transgendered. Shoehorned is more like it. Forced into the girls' system. And the MPA looked the other way. Because, the Human Rights Act. Oh, and by the way, one small little detail there, folks. Ms. Libby is quite aware of this. She's been in the legislature quite a long time. You see, Janet Mills and the Democrat leadership, so-called, I believe it was Sarah Gideon, or it could have been Rachel Talbot Ross, who was Speaker at the time, long before Mr. Fecteau took over. They got together and they decided to make some adjustments to the wording. And we're going to get to that here in just a moment on the Maine Human Rights Act under the Maine Human Rights Commission, so that sexual orientation and gender identity would be a consideration going forward. Anyone who wanted to compete in women's athletics. Wow. That sounds like desperate measures to me, folks. Coercion, corruption. Who got paid off is what I want to know. Or was that just a meeting of evil minds? Was it? Stinks to high heaven. Now we move on this abbreviated version of FIRM, folks, as we continue to find out whether the civil rights of young women in the state of Maine have been corrupted, twisted, discriminated against, or not. Here come the details. The Office for Civil Rights is what we're reading from the United States Department of Health and Human Services, February 2025. I've got the highlighted important parts, folks, and here we go. Notice of determination addressed to Governor Mills, the Office of the Attorney General, who's Aaron Frey. The Secretary of the United States Department of Health and Human Services to the Office of Civil Rights wrote to inform you, meaning Governor Mills and Attorney General Frey, that the Office of Civil Rights issues a notice of violation against the Maine Department of Education. Transaction number DO256105331-RV-CRR. Findings of fact. Paragraph 3 under Section 1, Findings of Fact. In 2024, 1 year ago, the MPA approved a policy, quote, allowing transgender athletes to compete on teams either according to their birth-assigned gender or gender identity. To compete on teams either according to their birth-assigned gender or gender identity. There it is. Number 4. Mike Burnham, Executive Director of the Maine Principals Association, stated the executive order, President Trump's executive order, and our Maine State Human Rights Act are in conflict. And the Maine Principals Association will continue to follow state law as it pertains to gender identity. Gee, that sounds like he's throwing it right in Donald Trump's face. Doesn't it to you? Paragraph 6. On February 17th, 2025, it was reported that Greeley High School, a public high school in the state of Maine, violated Title IX through the participation of a male athlete in a women's high school track meet. February 18th through the 19th of 2025, it was reported that the Maine Coast Waldorf, a public high school in the state of Maine, violated Title IX through the participation of a male athlete in a women's high school ski event. Section 2, Funding Jurisdiction. We're getting bottom line down and dirty, aren't we? In 2024, the Maine Department of Education received funding from the administration for community living, totaling $516,130 from the Centers for Disease Control, totaling $99,900, and from the Administration for Children and Families, totaling $87,000. Section 3, Notice of Violation. Paragraph 3. Section 3, Notice of Violation, Paragraph 3, and there's more. Paragraph 3 says the Maine Department of Education receives federal financial assistance from HHS. Paragraph 6, Maine Public Schools follow the laws, rules, and regulations set by the Maine Principals Association, which are reflective of current statewide standards, as noted by at least one public high school in the state. And lastly, Paragraph 7, based on the Maine Principals Association policy of allowing male athletes to compete against female athletes, the Office of Civil Rights has determined that the Maine Department of Education is in violation of federal law under Title IX. Can that not be put any more succinctly and accurately, folks? I don't see how you can ignore that and just say, we don't care. We've got our own laws. Isn't that weird? They said they've got their own laws. How does that sit with you, ladies and gentlemen? Truth, facts, reality, and common sense? Or are you going to go with the Maine Principals Association so that future girls are going to have to compete against biological men and risk getting hurt, like you saw the girl volleyball player get hit and had brain damage from a transgender who spiked the ball intentionally, I think, just to make a point that he's trans. It's going to be some time before she recovers from that brain injury. And she's damn lucky that she's not dead. I'm going to say it. Blessings from God above that it was just a volleyball and not a baseball or a football. In the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, we welcome your thoughts, and we also always welcome your views anytime, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right here. fairnessandreportingmedia@gmail.com. And our podcasts, over 300 now, all the time, on rumble.com/fairnessmedia1. Pray for the success of Laurel Libby in the federal courts. And also pray for our children, for the future of this country. And for Donald Trump, and for all of his cabinet members, that we get to the bottom of this and stop the violence and the hate and the corruption against laws that have been in favor of biological women since 1972. That's 52 years ago and counting, folks. The deflectocrats just go ahead and say, screw you. Not if he has something to say about it, which he always does. Because, ladies and gentlemen, you should already know, God is always watching. He has been right from the very start of humankind on this earth. God be with Laurel Libby and all of her constituents. The results and the truth will come out on top. Meantime, everybody stay safe and peace to all.